Shri Gurubhyo Namah, very good evening to everyone present here. With the divine blessings of Dr. Mrs. YG Parthasarathi, we are happy to announce that MILMUN' 2020 has been a roaring success. We begin today's program with the invocation to the Almighty. We now have Advika with the prayer song. Shri Gurubhyo Namah, very good evening to everyone present here. With the divine blessings of Dr. Mrs. YG Parthasarathi, we are happy to announce that MILMUN' 2020 has been a roaring success. We begin today's program with the invocation to the Almighty. We now have Advika with the prayer song. Shri Gurubhyo Namah, very good evening to everyone present here. With the divine blessings of Dr. Mrs. YG Parthasarathi, we are happy to announce that MILMUN' 2020 has been a roaring success. We begin today's program with the invocation to the Almighty. We now have Advika with the prayer song. Shri Gurubhyo Namah, very good evening to everyone present here. With the divine blessings of Dr. Mrs. YG Parthasarathi, we are happy to announce that MILMUN' 2020 has been a roaring success. We begin today's program with the invocation to the Almighty. We now have Advika with the prayer song. Shri Gurubhyo Namah, very good evening to everyone present here. With the divine blessings of Dr. Mrs. YG Parthasarathi, we are happy.
Advika, please go ahead.
सर्वं ब्रह्ममयं रे रे सर्वं ब्रह्ममयं रे रे सर्वं ब्रह्ममयं रे रे सर्वं ब्रह्ममयं रे 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 सर्वं ब्रह्ममयम् किं वचनीयं किमवचनीयं किं वचनीयं किमवचनीयं किं रचनीयं किमरचनीयं किं रचनीयं किमरचनीयं सर्वं ब्रह्ममयम् रे रे सर्वं ब्रह्ममयम् सर्वत्र सदा हंसध्यानं सर्वत्र सदा हंसध्यानं कर्तव्यं भो मुक्तिनिधानं कर्तव्यं भो मुक्तिनिधानं सर्वं ब्रह्ममयम् रे रे सर्वं ब्रह्ममयम् रे रे सर्वं ब्रह्ममयं ब्रह्ममयं ब्रह्ममयम्.
Thank you, Advika. That was a wonderful rendition. I hope that everyone who's been a part of MILMUN' 2020 goes back today with something they've learned. I'm sure that these 2 days have been enriching socially, culturally, and intellectually. As future diplomats, and more importantly, citizens of this world, it is our duty to be aware of all that happens around us. This pandemic has only shown us a greater need for doing so. There is no excuse for any of us to be ignorant of the world around us. If nothing else, it is my hope that everyone who has been a part of this edition of the MILMUN goes back today with a better knowledge of this world that they live in. I now call upon the head of Delegate Affairs, Sayed Lathan, to give us a summary of the key years of this year's conference.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's been great, hasn't it? I've been blown away by the debating and diplomatic skills shown by all the delegates in the past 2 days. Without further ado, let's begin with the synopsis and review of each committee. Dissect. The agenda of Disarmament and International Security Committee was to address the threats of international peace and security from non-state actors and violent extremist groups with emphasis on Middle East and North African regions. They discussed about ways to keep nuclear weapon out of the hands of non-state actors. Along with that, they discussed about the Syrian civil war. ECOSOC, the agenda for Economic and Social Council was about discussing measures for an operative economy post the pandemic with special emphasis on wealth redistribution and challenges ahead. Solutions were discussed regarding the agenda, economic policies of various countries and the impact of unemployment in the post-COVID era were discussed. UNW, the agenda for UN Women was eliminating the violence committed against women and addressing the deprivation of their rights. The Council discussed abortion laws and ways to prevent female infanticide. Relief provision for sex workers during pandemic were also discussed. Furthermore, they came up with solutions to increase women's political participation and their representation in society. Bilderberg. The agenda for Bilderberg was deliberation on the usability of a novel element, Odinium, as a high-power fuel source. They explored about having an analysis and extended research on Odinium and its utility. They also debated upon the privatization of Odinium and its distribution policies. ICTE, the agenda for international conglomerate of technological enterprises, centered on ways to curb hate speech on social media caused by geopolitics. The delegates analyzed and discussed the repercussions of geopolitics in 5G race. To boot, the delegates discussed the banning of apps in countries due to geopolitical tensions with respect to Huawei and TikTok. CCC, the Continuous Crisis Committee, dealt with usage of chemical weapons for war. The delegates discussed chemical warfare. Powerful nations such as USA and Russia intervened to play their usual role. The committee also witnessed a major turnover when Yemen and India betrayed Russia and issued an apology to the committee. IP, the reporters of international press exhibited phenomenal professionalism. The reporters were alert and engaging. The press conferences were outstanding. Overall, the conference succeeded in bringing out the plethora of opinions and ideas to the forefront of discussion. In conclusion, I am proud to say that MILMUN has served its purpose of making our generation well informed about the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Lathan. That was very insightful. It is my privilege to introduce our chief guest today, Mr. Ayush R. Mr. Ayush has been in the realm of public speaking and debating for over 2 decades now. He's a recognizable name across the country in the debating and the model UN circuit, having been invited to conferences as the chairperson at premier institutes, including IITs and IIMs. He has also been invited to international conferences, including ones conducted at Oxford University and the National University of Singapore. In 2016, he won an all-expenses-paid fortnight in Japan as a result of winning Tokyo Way to Japan. It is a pleasure to have you with us, sir. I now invite our chief guest to address the gathering.
Hello, everyone. It's truly a privilege and an honor to be here. Thank you for that kind introduction that you have given everybody about me. So, just to set some context, I have been doing Model UN for I think about 5-6 years at this point in time. 6 years, almost 7. When it comes, if I still do Model UN, maybe before April next year. But the point that I'd like to convey is Before I talk about a couple of things that I had prepared, is I wanted to address the ideology of Model UN, the ideology of the United Nations itself, and how it pertains to our society currently. Usually, I think a standard question that predominantly the public and most common folk ask is the UN really useful? Has it actually done much? Isn't the UN a massive failure? Because there have been unrest, violence, issues, chaos in several parts of the world. Even today, we have so many active conflicts. We have so many issues, and to couple on top of that and make everything worse, we also have a raging pandemic. And what has the international community actually done? This may be a common question. Like this, I'm sure, is something that all of you would have thought of yourselves at some point in time as well, right? But I think it's very important to understand the purpose of the United Nations, the purpose of the idea of global collaboration and partnership, and in turn, what does Model UN do? So these are some of the things that are very important to understand. So I'm going to start off by taking you along my train of thought on these topics by quoting Dag Hammarskjöld. He was the Secretary General of the United Nations uh, during the beginning of the Vietnam War. He was also the youngest Secretary General in the to take up the office of the Secretary General of the United Nations. And he said something that is very profound that has stuck with me ever since I heard it. The purpose of the United Nations was not to take mankind to heaven. It was to prevent mankind from going to hell. And if you think about it, the more you think about it, the more you realize that his words actually ring very true. The United Nations may have failed in several places. We may still have civil unrest in countries like Syria. We may have a massive uh, influx of refugees from the Middle East to different parts of the world. We may have a huge humanitarian crisis in terms of lack of food, lack of water, lack of uh, any form of resources, coupled with bombings and attacks in Yemen. We may have challenges across the world, but if you think about it, the United Nations has made sure that there is no large scale outbreak of a war where the entire world is embroiled in one. It has always tried to deflate and reduce the entire situation in any conflict. We may have simmering conflicts that have been existent for several years, if not decades. A most recent example today would be, say, Azerbaijan, right? You guys would have probably heard of what's happening in Nagorno-Karabakh. But if you think about it, a full-scale war has been averted until this date, and if we're lucky, it'll be averted this time too. So that's what the United Nations stands for. It is all about trying to come at one table, kind of sit down, talk about your differences, understand the root of the problem, and try in some way to mitigate the problem, if not absolutely solve it. And I think as the concept of the UN, Model UN also tries to inculcate the same, and it's all the more relevant today in today's world where the entire idea of intolerance is higher than ever, where people become extremely aggressive about their beliefs, about their situations, about their challenges, and about their political opinions. The shining beacon of the Western world and democracy, the United States, is embroiled in a domestic issue at this point in time, and that is the mere fundamental filament of democracy, elections, right? So now more than ever, it's important to understand and think about and also try to practice the concepts of tolerance, the concepts of, say, acceptance, liberty, and mutual collaboration. Now that I've gone about my entire train on that vertical, why do Model UN is a question so many people have asked me. So I have trained students to do Model UN. I have trained people who have won across various institutions in the country. I also had the youngest winners at Oxford University as my students. So that's an honor I hold till date. So why Model UN? What's so special about it? What makes it different from, say, public speaking or debating? And I've done both of those as well. I think Model UN provides a platform for all of us to develop a couple of very important life skills, if I can call it that. Some of them from the top of my head, like if I can list a few of how Model UN can change your perception, a couple of things and help you pick up some of these life skills, include the idea of collaboration, about how you sit with people who have varied views on a particular issue, how they have varied challenges towards trying to help them fix a particular issue. And you try and find common ground. You try and find a mode that's acceptable to everybody to move forward. You try and empathize with their challenges. You try and factor in other aspects into the situation, and you also validate everybody's challenges and feelings in terms of how you go about it and arrive at a solution, right? So that's a major life skill. Apart from that, the idea of negotiation and convincing, how you have to make somebody realize that they need to like take on more responsibility. They need to do certain actions to ensure that there is more accountability, there is more peace. So all of this I understand is a simulation in model event, right? But it's a simulation where you can pick up these skills, you can put your skills to the test and also improve upon these facets. And I think that's one of the most important takeaways that you can get for a model event. And critical thinking, like thinking out of the box, understanding the root problem, the analysis that comes with it. It's not just mere, it's not a mere diary of facts, right? That you can spout on a committee. Why are those facts relevant? Why is it important to us today? How does it matter? These are things that you are forced to deal with in model event. So that's why I definitely would endorse anybody if they ask me, should I do model event? I definitely say yes. At the end of the day, model UN is also what you take out of it. There will be people who come to an MUN just to, wear a suit, get a couple of nice photographs, try to make friends. None of this is wrong, by the way. I don't see anything wrong with any of this. Everybody has their own interests, but at the end of the day, it is what you take out of it. If you want to do more Model United Nations just to make friends, so be it. If you are doing it to actually pick up a couple of life skills, great. It's at the end of the day something under your control and what you can take control of. And with that, I think I will wrap up this address. I know most of us don't like to be kept waiting during closing ceremonies, especially because the next segment is something that most people anticipate a lot, right? The award ceremony. So with that, I'd like to conclude my short take on what I think about Model UN, what I think about the UN and consequently Model UN, and why I till date stand as an advocate for participation in Model UN, and why I definitely encourage all of you to participate more and learn more during the process. These skills are something that will apply in your life later on, and it would make things a whole lot easier for you. And with that, I'd like to conclude. Master of Ceremony, back to you.
You learn in a month that help you in a lot of ways, and it helps you see the world. I would now like to call upon our principal to address the gathering.
Greetings, everyone. We request our principal to address the gathering.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. At the outset, I would like to congratulate all the students who have played a mighty important role in today's MUN, and all the teachers who have been the backbone for this program. I'm sure this different kind of model UN has been a great success. But at the same time, I hope we come back to offline and real MUN next academic year. Let me thank Ayush for giving his perspective. And like Ayush, I agree with him completely. I'm a strong believer of the United Nations. I know the United Nations has faced many problems since its inception. 75 years have gone, but there are more pluses than minuses. Undoubtedly, the post-Second World War saw Cold War, and as examples of Cold War, we have the Korean crisis, we had the Vietnam War, and a number of other recent, the last 20, no, unfortunate humanitarian efforts have not been able to completely save humanity. That is a tragedy. And as I think today's committees did discuss, one of the greatest threats, besides, of course, the climate issues, global issues, gender issues, including abortion rights or gay marriages and legal rights, and how women are being treated, especially in societies which believe in patriarchal system. All this has been discussed, including Willenberg Committee, which is sometimes called the Supper Club or Super Club. You have both the Bill Clinton and Bill Gates there. All these committees have discussed many issues, and I'm sure you have all reached a conclusion. But what's very important to understand is we need to look at each other's perspectives. And I think the United Nations plays a mighty important role in that. That's something that we need to understand. And today, more than any other day, especially with social media playing havoc, and we know what is happening in France, and that also is a result of social media, there's no doubt about that. Today, we need to realize that there is a need to strengthen the liberal and progressive voices in any society and understand that we should not encourage fanatics of any kind. There could be fanatics of ideological kind or religious kind, and understand that ultimately value systems are very important. Sometimes value systems may differ from one country to the other, but at the same time, the human plays a mighty important role in bringing all these countries with different value systems, different opinions in the same table, and tries to negotiate and build strength. I think that is the main purpose of the United Nations. And model United Nations is young students alert and aware of what's happening in the global scenario. That's something very important. And I think especially in a city like Coimbatore, where most of the times we live in kind of isolation and not aware of what's happening around the world, the Model UN gives the students an opportunity to understand what's happening and what is reality in the world outside our city, our country. And many students who participate in the Model UN come back with fresh perspectives and ideas, and also understanding of why certain things issue, and every issue you need to look into the background. You need to understand why it's happening rather than jump into conclusion and become judge and jury. So I think the Model UN gives fresh perspectives to young students. And as Ayush rightly pointed out, the skill to argue sophistry you learn in the Model United Nations. You learn to deliberate, you learn to discuss, and you learn to oppose peacefully, non-violently, and ultimately negotiate and learn to be a diplomat, which is very important. And so Nations, which has shown us the way to model United Nations, that besides, of course, so many other issues, the United Nations also, though the WHO may have received more brickbats than necessary, definitely the United Nations is also trying its best to find a vaccine, a solution to the pandemic. And I'm sure Model UN has definitely helped all our students to learn to become global citizens, which is very necessary in today's world, as we understand that none of us can be Robinson Crusoes, none of us can live in isolation. We need to come together, we need to extend our hand, we need to cooperate, we need to collaborate, and we need to live in a sustainable world using sustainable means, having sustainable products, eating sustainable food, and living the sustainable economy. With that, let me conclude and wish all the delegates and those who would be receiving special awards the best wishes, and others who have not received it. Today may not be your day, but you have learned a lot. Tomorrow you will be successful. So thank you very much. All the best. And I once again recall what Dr. Mrs. YGP always believed and said. And that is definitely all of us need to be accountable with integrity and responsibility. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.
Thank you, Ma'am, for your words of advice. I'm sure the students will take it to heart, and it was really nice to hear what you think of the UN. Now, for the much awaited part of the day, the prize distribution. I invite the executive board of the UN Women to announce the prizes for their committee.
Hi, can you all see me?
Yes, Venkat.
Hi. So my name is Venkat and I am a student of the PSBB Millennium School OMR. And this is my first time that I'm officially part of the executive board in an MUN. And the amount of fun that I've had and the amount of experience that I've gained in this, in like a session of 2 days and like an amount of 2 days is so huge that I'll probably carry it with me for the rest of my life. And I like to wish everyone out there all the best and continue munning despite the fact that whether they've won an award or not, because like Ayush sir said and Hemalata ma'am said, MUNing gives a person a lot of life skills and it can take them way ahead in life. So that's one thing I would like to say. Now, moving on to the much awaited part, I'll be announcing the verbal mentions for UNW. The fourth verbal mention goes to the delegate of Germany, followed by the third verbal mention goes to the delegate of Australia. This delegate, he had a lot of content and he had researched too much that we were actually really shocked to see someone who had done so much research when the background guide and all the other things came out not at the perfect amount of time. But yeah, we were really happy to see someone who had put in too much effort into the process of researching for an MUN. Followed by the second verbal mention goes to the delegate of China. This delegate, she didn't talk much, but the amount of questions that she asked and the points that she raised were really good and extremely valid. That she stirred a lot of conversation in the MUN, which anyone would really like. And the first verbal mention goes to the delegate of USA. This delegate, the content in her speeches was really good, and the amount of points that she raised and the questions that she asked by our chit were again really very good. So I would like to appreciate the delegates of Germany, Australia, China, and USA for their effort in the MUN.
Okay, so hey guys, I'm Ambrish. This is actually a very special conference for me because I actually delegated myself in the first MILMUN 2017 conference. So being invited to be part of the executive board for the 2020 MILMUN Honor Edition was actually, it's quite an honor for me to be here today. As Venkat stated, it was an honor. It was a lot of fun being a part of this committee, chairing with Mrinali and Venkat themselves. The committee went really well. A lot of interesting facts. I learned a lot of things myself from the delegates. So yeah, but without further ado, I'll get ahead with the awards. I'll be announcing the two special mention awards. So the first special mention award goes to the delegate of Russia. This delegate spoke a lot yesterday and made a lot of very good points. It was actually very interesting listening to our delegate speech. And the second special mention goes to the delegate of Ireland. Now, this delegate, although did not speak much in the committee, the substantive chits and the POIs given in the chat box were really interesting. I must say, delegate, if you speak more in committee, I guarantee you'll be getting a lot more high awards in the future. Please keep it up, and I'll hand over the mic to Mrinali now.
Good afternoon, all of you. So, talking about coming back to MILMUN 2020, being an alumni of PSV Millennium School, Coimbatore, and being invited for MILMUN 2020, chairing UN Women, there are so many things that just kept adding on to make me feel better about this conference. One is while we started this conference, started MILMUN, being a part of that and then looking at MILMUN grow to this, it's just personally very touching, and it's an emotional journey to see that MILMUN has become a name now. We started as a small conference and now we have people who look forward to MILMUN and look forward to the dates for MILMUN, and they keep waiting for MILMUN to happen. So it's personally a very emotional moment that way. And being called for chairing UN Women, having Ambarish on board, having Venkat on board, it was amazing learning from both of them. Having the delegates, kudos to all the delegates, all of them. Though there were kids in the delegates, there are 12th graders in the delegates. The quality of debate wasn't compromised. People, the delegates made sure that the committee went going. There was never a awkward situation in a committee that we had to stop somewhere. There was something or the other going on in the committee, which is something that I would like to appreciate. And the way the delegates interpreted laws and the ways they put in their minds and gave their own personal touch to it, that's something that I would want to appreciate. Now, coming to the most awaited awards, that is the topmost award, or however delegates want to put it as. The high commendation goes to the delegate of Bahrain. Delegate of Bahrain, now I know Nishi Kumari. I would want to point out that this delegate, be it substantive chits, be it raising POIs, be it giving GSLs, be it raising moderated caucus topics or giving speeches on those topics, everything on point. Very good points raised. Some of the chits and some of the POIs raised were like bombshells dropping. So please keep it up, Bahrain. You could obviously participate more by speaking more in the committee. That is for all the delegates here, that you could always participate more by bringing in more points or widening the scope of the committee or scope of the agenda given. Second on line, we have the delegate of Canada, Prakriti Arora, delegate of Canada. The second high com goes to Prakriti Arora. High coms are in no particular order. There is no ranking in high com. So Bahrain and Canada both bag the high commendation. And Prakriti Arora or Canada, the delegate of Canada, very good research, very good understanding of what you were doing, for good presence in committee. But my advice, just speak more, get yourself more involved. Maybe I can understand why delegates aren't speaking because this is not a physical conference, but please try to adapt and just get yourself more involved, and you people will reach heights for sure. UN Women will not have best delegate awards because this is what the EB thought would best suit the committee. Thank you once again, the organizing committee, Akash, Seyralata and Arjun, PSB Millennium School, Hemlata ma'am, all of you, thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Ambarish and Venkatraman, to be such supportive executive members, supportive chairs. Thank you so much. It was a great experience. Looking forward to both MILMUN 2021 and working with all of you again.
I now request the chairperson and vice chairperson of DISEC to declare the prize winners.
Yeah, hello guys. My name is Ramakrishna. I served as the chairperson of the UNGA DISEC. So before I go into the award structure, I would like to place my gratitude to a few members. Firstly, I would like to thank Akash, Harsita, Ronit, Siralad, and Arjun for inviting me. The thing about MILMUN was that this is like a complete cycle for me. Last year, MILMUN, Akash was the one who invited me, and that was my first EB experience. And after that, I went on to do more EB experiences, and I over to MILMUN for my starting step for my career. And following which, I also had the chance of mentoring a few of these PSBB students, Akash, Ronit, when they came over to YLGC, where I served as Deputy Secgen. So we had a really good bond. And again, this was a really nice touch to it. And again, talking about the committee was again full of first-timers and a couple of experienced delegates. So it was noticed that a few of them had hesitance to talk first, to put out their points more clearly. But at the end of the day, some kind of consensus were reached in regards of what should be at the end, what the direction of committee should be. But still, the committee failed due to small margin in votes. And also would like to thank Ayush over here, because Ayush was mentioning the number of students he has trained. Also, when I came out to Chennai for my first MUN, Ayush was my chair, and I was pretty scared, and he helped me to guide on what Chennai circuit was about. So yeah, Ayush, thank you for that also. With that said, I'll be going into the award structure. We are having 3 verbal mentions, 2 special mentions, one high commendation, and 1 BD. I'll be announcing the verbal mentions and the special mentions. The verbal mentions in no particular order. Jordan, the Syrian Arab Republic, and the Sultanate of Oman. These 3 countries had a margin of only 5 points difference, and the verbal mention and the special mentions had a difference of around 1 point. But at a single point of time, Oman and the next 2 special mentions had a difference of only 1 point between them, owing to a couple of changes during the DR discussion and a couple of point of orders. The whole status quo was changed. So moving on to the special mention in a particular order, the special mention 2 goes to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Yeah, the delegate of Saudi Arabia had great research, had great lobbying. The only thing they could have improved upon is to have lobbied herself into creating a DR on their own. But apart from that, it was good work. And the first special mention goes to the delegate of the United Kingdom. So yeah, this delegate at a point of time was in contention for best delegate, but owing to a couple of mishaps with respect to the DR and a couple of mishaps with regards to chits, the delegate lost out. So yeah, that's been by time. Thank you. And Nikhil will be announcing the high commendation and the best delegate. Thank you.
Right. Hi guys, I'm Nikhil from PSVB LLA Bangalore. First of all, the committee was an amazing experience. As Ram mentioned, it was a mix of both first timers and slightly experienced delegates. So it was overall a really nice committee. Before I go ahead with the awards, I want to thank Ram. He handled committee really well when I wasn't there. I also want to thank Akash and Arjun from the OC for handling committee when Ram and I weren't there. Because Ram and I were a little busy at times, but they did really well. So I want to thank all of them. Moving on to the high commendation, this delegate is the true proof of speeches don't win you everything. The delegate spoke very little in comparison to most other delegates, but his points were on point and literally won him high commendation. Aside from that, the delegate also would have assumed to have a major foreign policy change yesterday night, but actually knew how his policy stood. The delegate I'm talking about, of course, is the delegate of the United States winning the High Commendation Award. Moving on to the Best Delegate Award, this delegate is the true embodiment of jack of all trades. This delegate dominated in speeches, dominated in unmods, dominated in chits, dominated in literally every single manner possible. And this delegate has actually improved a whole lot from when I chaired the same delegate in a previous Model United Nations conference. The Best Delegate Award goes to the delegate of UAE. Congratulations to all delegates. And to delegates that didn't win, you all did really well. And this committee was really fun with all of you guys. Congratulations again.
I now call upon the Executive Board of ECOSOC to announce the prizes for their committee.
Good evening. I'm Abhirami from Scudder School, Vellore. I want to thank the Secretariat, especially Akash, Hashita, and Ronak, for giving me this opportunity to chair the Economic and Social Council, for I have immense passion toward the domain. And in these 2 days, I have learned that the delegates have the same passion. The quality of debate was spectacular. The committee came up with so many productive points with so much ease. They discussed so many complex concepts with so much ease. There was a 7th grader who talked about aggregate demand and consumption patterns, and we were in awe. Also, regardless of who the winners are, I congratulate every single delegate for holding commendable civic duty and speaking up for the global economic crisis. Thank you for the opportunity. Over to my fellow EB members to announce the awards.
Hi guys, this is Shakti and I am the Vice Chairperson for the Committee of ECOSOC. I'm from PSBB Millennium Chennai Gargambakam branch. And to say that ECOSOC committee was the best committee would be an understatement, to be honest, because my delegates, my co-EB people, and everyone, even the secretariat, were amazing. They were extremely helpful, and I'm actually really, really thankful for them. I wish I could take up more time and share my experience of MILMUN', but then I don't want to torture the delegates anymore, because even in committee, we gave them a lot of surprises, and I'm pretty sure they're like in the edge of their seats waiting for the awards. So without any further ado, the verbal mention in no particular order goes to the delegate of International Labour Organization and the delegate of Russia and the delegate of China. Uh, these three delegates were amazing in committee, and if I was to sum up these three delegates in one word, it would be amazing delegates. That's all I ever have to say about them, because they were just amazing in committee. They try their level best and keep going, delegates. You were really amazing. And then the special mention goes to the delegate of World Bank, followed by the delegate of France. The representative of World Bank and France, you guys were amazing, because your prep and content and speeches were just like, they were like the example of how a good speech and shit should be. And I'm really, really impressed by you guys. Like, when I read all your chits, I was like mind blown. I was like, wow, these guys researched and they worked really hard on it. So congratulations, guys. And I'll be passing on to Karthik, who will be announcing the high commendation and best delegate. Thank you, guys, and good luck on your further ME events.
My name is V. Karthik, and I'm from VIT School of Law. And this is my first year in college, but I am a student from the PSB Millennium Chennai, Gerikambakam. So, first of all, I would like to thank PSB Coimbatore for inviting me here to this wonderful conference. I would like to thank the OC members for giving me this opportunity. Secondly, I would like to thank my co-chairperson and my vice chairperson, who have been very supportive for the last 2 weeks. And we had a lot of, although we had a lot of work, we still managed to have a very good conference, and it was a really good 2 days. And talking about the awards, delegates, I am not even kidding. I and I and my co-chairpersons had the most difficult time in choosing the awards. And to continue with the award session, the high commendation goes to delegate of United Kingdom. And talking about the delegate of United Kingdom, the main reason why this delegate was able to overcome the delegate of World Bank was because of the amount of research this delegate had done was equally good, and and also he paid more attention to every delegate who was speaking, because that's something important in economic committee, because it is a committee where every word matters. And next up, we have the best delegate. Best delegate of ECOSOC will be the delegate of Germany. And this was a delegate. I knew during the first speech itself, this delegate will be showing the vision for this committee, and it was right. Like, through the conference, we were able to see how we saw how the delegate made sure the committee was going in her way. And yeah, like, being it points of order, points of information, being it substantive checks, everything, this delegate was working really good, and it was really nice to see this delegate perform. And that's it, delegates. We had an amazing time in ECOSOC, and I always tell wherever I go, don't stop MUNing. It seriously has a huge impact on your career, just like what it had on myself. From being a science student, I have chosen to study law. So please continue MUNing, and that's it, guys. Thank you.
I now call upon the Executive Board of the Continuous Crisis Committee to declare the award winners for their committee.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Srilakshmi Chidambaram, and from the University of Manila in the Philippines, and I am the head. I think was the head chair of the Continuous Crisis Committee. In this particular crisis committee, we simulated the organization for the prohibition of chemical warfare based on the Chemical Warfare Convention. Before I talk about committee and announce the awards, I just want to thank a couple of people. The first being Akash, who I think was one of the first people who approached me for chairing this committee. And thank you so much for helping us out with constructing some of the updates and for being a really good friend. I think I also have to thank the Secretary General Harshita because there were some minor delays with creating the documents for our committee, the timeline and the background guide. And she was always very supportive and understanding. So thank you very much for that. And I also have to thank the Director General, Ronit, who helped us, I think, moderate the last session of our committee today when we were briefly unavailable. And of course, I'm remiss without mentioning the incredible work put in by both of my vice chairs, Abhay and Jayashree. I have to thank Jayashree for doing such meticulous marking of all the directives and for always having my back and coming to moderate the committee when I was not available. And I also, of course, thank Abhay for just all the amazing work he did. He was the person behind all the updates in our committee, and he put in so much of effort creating the updates and marking the press releases. And he did so much of work, and he really is a gem of a person. I haven't worked with most of these people before. I got to meet them only for the first time while chairing this particular conference, but I really do feel that I've made a lot of good friends. So talking about the committee in general, it was incredibly surprising for me because this is the first time that I'm simulating an OPCW. So usually I go for other unconventional committees, but this was the first time I decided to try this out for MILMUN', and I was just astonished by the amazing response by the delegates of my committee. And I was a little apprehensive, I think, a couple of days before the conference. I didn't know if the effort would pay off, but it did and went far beyond all of our expectations. The committee was always lively and all of our delegates were incredibly enthusiastic. I'm just really impressed by their tenacity, and the delegates corrected each other's statements. There was a high level of factual accuracy that was maintained throughout the conference. And also, I think this is an inside joke between the delegates of my committee, but we heard the most amount of sincere apologies in this conference. I think I've never heard that many in any of the other crisis committees that I've chaired. So I'm just incredibly grateful to have met all of these delegates, and I hope that you go on to do many more crisis committees in the future. So we have 3 verbal mentions for our committee in no particular order: the delegates of Russia, Syria, and Iraq. So the delegates of Russia and Syria were actually primarily involved in most of the updates that we had yesterday. And they did face a few difficulties, but I really have to give them credit for, they didn't just, run away, they kept at it. And I really have to admire them for their tenacity and for their effort. So of course, there are a few areas that they could improve on, but this was definitely a good performance. And I hope that you can go to many more crisis committees and improve upon the skills that you have. And as for the delegate of Iraq, wasn't very active yesterday, but today, she really tried her best and presented various points of information and inquiry. And I really feel that you can definitely improve upon your skills as well. So these are the verbal mentions for the CCC. I hand over to my Vice Chair, Jayashree, to announce the special mentions.
So hi, delegates and other people present. I have actually delegated in MILMUN' before, around 2-3 years ago, I guess. And coming back as a vice chairperson is a really heartwarming experience for me. And as for committee, I basically chaired a lot of humanitarian committees, and they were all in real time. They were not virtual conferences. So I was new to the whole idea of online conferences. This is the first online conference that I have chaired, and I I really did not have like high expectations about the delegates whatsoever. But as soon as the committee started and we started delving into the topic, the delegates proved their skills immensely. They were able to think on their feet. They were able to come up with immediate solutions. They tackled with scenarios that were just presented to them in such a commendable way. And there are three special mentions in our committee. In no particular order, we'll start with Yemen. The delegate of Yemen, though the delegate did not speak much in committee yesterday, today he displayed a tremendous amount of inquisitiveness, and his points of information were amazing, like really. And the second special mention goes to the delegate of Germany. The delegate of Germany has been constantly engaging himself with point of informations and points of orders, and he definitely has a lot of ways to go. And the third special mention goes to the delegate of India. Delegate of India, he had so many good speeches. He had done so much research, and his facts were accurate, and he just was on point. He might have lost out on higher awards due to his mishaps regarding regarding the maintenance of decorum, but otherwise it was amazing. And unfortunately, we didn't deem that high commendations would be suitable for this committee. So we'll directly move on to the Best Delegate Award, which will be announced by the Vice Chair of this committee, Abhay.
Just to step in, I think that Abhay actually sent a text and he said that the internet connection is a little shaky where he is. So he asked me to handle the best delegate as well. So of course, before I say this, like full credit to Abhay. I think I mentioned it before, but since he couldn't give his speech right now, I just really need to appreciate him for everything he's done. And in his own words, I really have to thank him for his very get-to updates. So with that, the best delegate of our committee, I think a lot of the delegates of the CCC will have figured this out by now, but our best delegate goes to the delegate of the United States of America. And there really isn't much to explain here because the delegate of the USA was consistent right from the beginning of committee. And even when the crisis situations were against him, even when there were a lot of suspicious things going on, like he always managed to keep his stance clear. And he also was responsible for some of the overt directives that were discussed in committee today. And he really put in like consistent effort throughout. And I really have to appreciate him for his involvement and for his dedication in committee. So I hope you go to many more crisis committees in the future, and I'm sure you'll do a really good job. And as for the other delegates who did not receive awards, the entire executive board of the OPCW would really encourage you to go to many more crisis committees. And I know that, there were a lot of first timers in our committee, so maybe this was a little difficult for you in the beginning, but we really encourage you to go to many more committees, and we're sure that you'll really improve your skills and do a tremendous job. Thank you.
I call upon the chairperson and vice chairperson of ICT to announce the awards for their committee.
Hi, delegates. So, I'm Divya Shivakumar. I'm the vice chairperson for this conference. So, about the committee ICTE. So, although this was a very beginner committee, the delegates did a great job. They were a bit hesitant in the beginning, but then after a while they got used to it. And then the quality of chits and the speeches, it was great. And then I've delegated a lot of times in MILMUN'. So coming back as a vice chairperson feels really great considering this is my last year in school. And this is my first time chairing a committee like ICTE, and I would like to thank the secretariat, school, everybody for this experience. It's a great honor to be a part of the CB along with Vishnu Saravanan himself. And I would like to thank the principal ma'am, and I would like to thank Savitri ma'am and other teachers who were with us in the committee. Nisha ma'am and Jacinta ma'am are really cooperative, so they helped us a lot. And that was about the committee and my experience as such. And now coming to the awaited part, I will not take more time. So coming to the awards, we have 3 verbal mentions and 1 best delegate, 1 high commendation, and 1 special mention. So About the verbal mentions, we have 3 verbal mentions in no particular order. It's Jaron Lania, Nick Reed, and Tim Cook. So delegates, you did a great job. We highly encourage you to do more months. So if you don't get an award, please don't feel discouraged and all. It's fine. And that's been my time, guys. Vishnu will take over from here.
Good evening, all of you. Attending MILMUN' is more like twice a year family meet because literally everybody in the EB secretariat, the organizing council are really close to me. I guess except for like 1 or 2 people in the EB, I'm genuinely close with a lot of people here. It's more like PSBB is always family. I feel very welcomed, more than my own family here at PSBB schools. It was an honor chairing the MILMUN' 2020 online edition, like always all the other MILMUNs do. Thanks to everybody in the organizing council, the secretariat, my fellow EB member Divya, she was constant support, the teachers, the management, the principal, Savitri ma'am, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here to share the conference. For the award section of my committee, ICTE, which was on point all the time. That was one line which I would use to describe the committee. The awards are special mention, Edward Snowden, high commendation, John Stanky, best delegate, Steve Huffman. As we discussed earlier, the amount of discussed earlier in the committee, the amount of debate that went down in the committee is tremendous, which I did not, to be honest, I did not expect from a bunch of first-time MUN participants. All the MUN participants here, they have a really bright future ahead of them in the terms of diplomacy, negotiations, and MUNs. Keep MUNing. Best of luck. Thank you.
I now call upon the Executive Board of Bilderberg Council to announce the awards for their committee.
Yeah. Greetings, everyone. My name is Shikhar Tripathi. I belong to the Delhi circuit. This was probably my 233rd conference. Yes, 233rd conference. I've been doing it for the last 10 years. This committee was definitely, okay. One thing about me, I will not really lie. If I am in a conference, I would just be up for it. So that, the only reason I do that is so that people can learn and I can help them improve. This is the only motto that I took to this committee. We went through the committee in a very cooperative manner. All of us, be it the executive board or the delegates, we were working as a unit. We definitely did highlight the flaws in them. We tried to bring them forward and help them improve in the committee itself. Okay. Now, for the simple matter that if we award mediocrity today, mediocrity shall persist. And the only thing that should be a motto if you're going to any conference is to win and improve. If you're not improving, if you're not winning, if you're not really getting anything out of it, just a material trophy or probably an award won't really help. So on the same line, with the same thinking, with the thinking of the delegates as well as the executive board being alike, we are not really giving any best delegate or high commendation award in this committee. We're solely going to have one special mention and three verbal mentions. I won't be announcing them. My director will be announcing them. He was yet another person who improved immensely in the committee. He was an amazing co-EB member. He worked really well. So I think the real, the honor to announce the award should go to my director and not me. Abhinav, please take over.
EB, kindly please turn on your videos when you're speaking.
Yes. Thank you, Shikhar. So this was actually my first time being the executive board for the MILMUN conference. And I've got to say, it was a really good opportunity. I got to meet a lot of delegates from both PSBB schools and other schools, in and around Coimbatore and also around the southern states. And my co-EB were really amazing. While I was moderating the committee, my co-EB members were doing all the behind the scenes work, including the marking, the checking of the documentation and everything. And because of that, I will not be able to make any comments on the delegates who have won prizes. So I'm very sorry about that. I'm really thankful to the Secretariat and the PSBB Millennium School Coimbatore for giving me the opportunity to be an EB. And now on to the prizes. I would like to remind all the delegates that even if you did not win a prize, you have won 2 days of experience, which you can always look back at and learn and improve yourself. On to the prizes. Our verbal mentions are, in no particular order, the delegates of Donald Trump, Patrick Canner, and Emmanuel Macron. And the special mention for the Bilderberg Council goes to the delegate of Jeff Bezos. As Chikala said, we do not have a high commendation or a best delegate, so these are our prizes. But I'm very sure that all the delegates got a really great learning experience and a really great opportunity to debate. And the topic was really interesting. The way they approached it was amazing. So if we ever end up finding a new element in the future, we know that we have a set of people ready to tackle that issue. Thank you.
I call upon the Director General to declare the awards for IP.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ronit. I'm the Director General of MILMUN 2020. Unfortunately, we don't have Ramasai with us here, who's the head of IP. So I'll be filling in for him. Okay, so starting off with the verbal mentions in no particular order. The verbal mentions go to Kavan Kishore and Neha. And moving on to the best reporter, the best reporter is awarded to Sumukhi S of the PSBB Group of Schools, Nungambakkam. All the delegates did a wonderful job right from day one. They worked really hard throughout the 2 days. And even I was there in the press con when all these reporters were questioning other delegates, and it was fantastic to see the quality of questioning. And again, the secretariat, my fellow, my teachers and principal ma'am for letting us organize MILMUN 2020 despite the pandemic. In the beginning, we were quite, we were thinking of how to make this successful, but then again, we figured out a way, and I hope that all of you have gained a lot of experience throughout the course of 2 days. Thank you.
I call upon the Secretary General to announce the best school delegation.
Greetings, everyone. On Shri Guru Nama and on to the best and most awaited award of these 2 days, the best school delegation. And without any wait, the best school delegation goes to PSB Nungambakkam. Congratulations to all the delegates and to the school.
Thank you to all the members of the Executive Board. Congratulations to all the winners. Gratitude paints little smiley faces on everything it touches. MILMUN 2020 has been a milestone for all of us, and today would not be complete without thanking everyone who has made this event possible. We thank our chief guest, Mr. Ayush R. It has been a privilege to have you grace this occasion. We express our deepest gratitude to all the heads of schools who made it a point to be a part of this program. Special thanks to our principal and the management for giving us this wonderful opportunity. And we are extremely thankful to our teachers for all their support and efforts in making today possible. I also thank all the members of the Executive Board for taking time to make this conference one that will be remembered. A special thanks to the members of the organizing committee for maintaining a smooth flow of all the events of the day. Thank you to the members of the core committee for making MILMUN 2020 a success. Special thanks to all the members of the design team, Shyam V. Madhu, Sriram T, Atish, Sanjay, and Ajay, for technical support and the amazing trailer, posters, and certificates. And finally, thanks to all the delegates from various schools for their keen interest and active participation. Today would have been impossible without you all. Once again, a heartfelt gratitude to everyone who's helped us make this event possible in even the slightest ways. Thank you all. I now call upon the Secretary General to take over.
Thank you, Sanskriti. It's fair enough. I will take 1 more minute to share with all of you how it's been a wonderful experience for me. When I started off, it was just 2 committees and I was delegating, and I looked up and I said, one day I will be the Secretary General, and here I am. Thanks to my school, to my teachers, to the alumni who've passed out, who've trained us, and Mrinali is also here, she's one of them. And right now, I would like to take this opportunity to also thank my core committee, aka the Secretariat, for all the hard work, coordination, time, and effort that you put in. Despite our differences, we were able to work in tandem to get here, and I'm very proud to have you with me. I would also like to thank the Director General, who has been a pillar of support and encouragement, and he's always stepped in at the right time to be of help. Finally, having said all of that, it gives me immense pleasure to close the conference. And by the powers vested in me by the United Nations Charter, Chapter 15, I, Harshita Pandey, Secretary General of Millennium Model United Nations 2020, hereby declare this conference closed. Please stay back for the after movie, which will be played after this.
For 2 days each year, you don the role of a world leader, engage in global issues, and negotiate to make impactful decisions.
This is basically to make sure that you people are also following. Not only you are going to be the part of Model United Nations today, but you are going to pursue your career in the future towards being in the United Nations.
By the powers vested in me by the United Nations Charter, Chapter 15, I, Harshita Pandey, Secretary General of Millennium Model United Nations 2020, hereby declare this conference open.
We'll start the committee.
USA has been working towards recovering its economy, which had been badly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Legality of voting. Yeah, that's it. That's the phrasing of the third one. Put the 3 ones in chat. You can continue with your facts.
Providing an ironclad definition for terrorism. This should have actually been the first topic before the Syrian conflict. Because without knowing what the meaning of terrorism, how can we discuss about a conflict?
So, the delegate of Australia in many instances has pointed out the problems that India is facing based on gender inequality. So the executive board and the delegates of the global community would like a reply from the delegate of India on the same.
Because we already have UN Department for Sustainable Development there. And if you have an entire committee about it discussing sustainable development every single time in the UNGA, you don't need to relate it specifically to the Paris Agreement. Okay? I know what you're trying to do.